Hey, everybody. This is Demia Avery of the Demia Avery Show. Thank you for checking in with me. Thank you for listening. So, I have your Diddy update for today. It's going to be in two parts. This is part one, where the prosecution, they have Deonte Nash, a celebrity stylist, on the stand. So, I'm going to go ahead and start. Again, it's kind of long, so here we go. Cassie Ventura's friend called to the stand. Prosecutors are calling Deonte Nash, a friend of Cassie's, to the stand. All right, Prosecutor Comey will question Nash on direct examination. Nash is a celebrity stylist. He said he's testifying under a subpoena. And when asked if he wanted to be here, Nash said absolutely not. So it goes on to say Deonte Nash said he began working with Diddy and Cassie around 2008. He said he was an intern in the fashion department at Bad Boy Entertainment. Nash said he stopped working for Combs around 2018. It goes on to say Assistant U.S. Attorney Comey showed Deonte Nash um, a headshot of himself taken during the time he was working with Diddy. He laughed and said no when Comey asked if that was how he looked at the time. He confirmed it was a glamorous shot and said, "Yes, I look amazing," prompting laughs throughout the courtroom. So it goes on. Deontay Nash is describing sometimes he said Diddy Combs threatened Cassie. Nash testified that on multiple occasions he heard Combs tell Ventura that he would beat her A. Ventura would be super emotional after the incidents, he said. She would cry. Sometimes she would just stay in the house for days and go in a cocoon, Nash said. Nash said he heard Combs making other threats toward Ventura, including telling her he would not release her music and threatening to get her parents fired from their jobs. Combs also threatened to send sexually explicit videos of Ventura. Nash said Combs would threaten not to release Ventura's music anytime she did something he didn't like. Nash goes on to say he attended a party in 2014 with Cassie. She looked bomb. Her hair was down, he testified. When they arrived, Nash said Diddy grabbed him by the jacket and lifted him up. Nash testified that Combs told him Ventura's hair needed to be worn up. Nash then asked people for hairpins and told Ventura to go to the bathroom with other staff to fix her hair. Nash said Combs admitted to him later that night that Ventura's hair looked better down. Goes on. Nash, a celebrity stylist, a friend of Cassie, said he had to send all photos of Cassie's outfits to Diddy for approval. He would pick which one he liked, and that was usually the one we went with. Okay. Deontay Nash testified that he watched Diddy attacked Ventura in a rage sometime in 2013 or 2014 when he was helping Ventura pack for a trip. Nash said he answered the door when Combs arrived because Ventura was asleep on the couch. Combs kept yelling at Ventura about how she allegedly didn't answer her phone. Nash said he watched Combs grab her by her hair and pull her off the couch and start hitting her. Nash said he ran into Ventura's bedroom with Ventura and one of Combs' assistants. The assistant had been identified in the trial as quote unquote Mia. Combs pushed the door open as they tried to lock him out. Combs continued to attack Ventura, hitting and kicking her until she hit her head on the bed frame. Nash and Mia both jumped on Combs' back, but he threw them off, Nash said. Combs finally stopped when he noticed the blood. When he noticed the blood, he just panicked. Nash said Combs said to them, "Look what y'all made me do." Nash said he dialed 911, but someone told him to hang up before the call connected. He testified he can't remember who told him to hang up the phone. Combs told them Ventura would go to plastic surgery with his security guard. When Nash saw Ventura on a video call that next day, she had a gash on her forehead near her eyebrow and stitches. All right, it skips down. It says Deontay Nash recounted a time in 2013 or 14 when he was at Ventura's apartment and Diddy came over saying he wanted to talk to Ventura. He said Combs and Ventura went into the bathroom, and when they came out, Combs grabbed her by her hair and the back of her shirt and started pushing her out while telling her to get out of the house. Nash testified that he understood Combs was referring to Ventura's apartment. Nash testified that Combs pushed Ventura halfway out of the door and then began doing the same to him. He was more so popping me in the back of my head because I don't have her hair. I don't have hair, and grabbing my shirt. Nash said he went downstairs to get in his car, and Ventura and Combs came down later. Puff began to berate us both and finally let us go. Nash said he and Ventura began driving away when they received a call from Combs telling them to pull over. Combs then came up to the window and started talking to Ventura. Nash testified that Combs told her he would put sexually explicit photos of her on the internet. Combs said he was going to release them on schedule and start by sending them to her parents' job, by her parents' job. He said Combs also told Ventura he was the only one that protected her. Ventura was in tears as they drove away. Nash said, "That's just sign of abuse. I'm the only one that's protecting you from this." Wow. Nash testified that he told Ventura that if Combs wanted to release the tapes, she should let him, since he'd be on the tapes too. She said that he wasn't on the videos, that it was him taping her with other guys. Nash testified that Ventura said she didn't want to have sex with the other men, but she did it because Puff wanted her to. Okay, it goes on to say Deonte Nash's boss, stylist Derek Roche, I think it's pronounced Roche, called him to say he had given Nash's address to Diddy, who was on his way there. Nash then dropped Cassie off on Sunset Boulevard so she could catch a cab. When Roche, Diddy, and his security guard arrived at Nash's house, Diddy searched the house, asking where Ventura was. He looked in the oven. I don't know why he looked in the oven. Combs then took Nash's phone, which showed Ventura was calling him from a hotel nearby. Combs then demanded that Nash drive to the hotel while he followed, so Nash could get Ventura to come out of the hotel. Nash knew the staff at the hotel, so Combs told him to sweet talk his way up to Ventura's room. Combs' security guard and chief of staff, Tony Fletcher, went with Nash up to her room. Ventura was frightened when they got there. When they told her to go downstairs to Combs waiting outside, Ventura said she was going to go over the balcony as she walked towards it. Nash testified that when he left the hotel, he noticed a car was following him and thought it was Combs' security. He said he turned off the lights and sped away until he lost them, and then he went into a different hotel to spend the night. "I didn't think my home was safe to go to that night," he said. Nash said when he returned to his home the next morning, his backpack contained his ID, $1,000 in cash, and his iPad had been stolen. It goes on to say Nash also testified that Diddy was violent with him a few times. Nash recalled an occasion around 2013 during a music video shoot for Ventura when Combs attacked him while he was outside smoking a cigarette. Combs grabbed Nash and threw him on a parked car, saying to Nash, "I thought I told you about going out, y'all wildin'," Nash said. Nash testified that Combs was referring to the occasion he testified about earlier when Combs told Nash he couldn't go out because Ventura would want to go with him. All right, guys, we almost done. Deonte Nash, a celebrity stylist, testified he saw Diddy slap Ventura across the face one time in 2015. Nash said that they were with a few other people in a parking lot outside of the music studio when he heard a commotion. Nash said he looked over and saw Combs slap Ventura across the face and said, "Get this B out of here." Nash said he took Ventura away and she was in tears. The stylist also testified that he FaceTimed with Ventura while she was getting ready for quote unquote the perfect match premiere in 2016. That was a movie. Nash said he noticed she had a black eye. Nash said he saw her in person at a premiere event and could see the black eye under the makeup. He said he also noticed Combs grabbing at her side during the event. Nash also testified he observed bruises on Ventura's legs, arms, and neck quite often. Nash testimony so far has detailed the ways Diddy Combs controlled Ventura's life, which the prosecution is using to prove the underlying racketeering conspiracy charge. CNN Misty Maris said. Nash testified to, quote, elements of control he witnessed, Maris said. He testified that Cassie's entire persona, her wardrobe, her hair, that was all controlled by Combs. But more so, he had actually heard Combs say, I'm going to beat you. That he had heard Combs say, I'm not going to release your music. Then he heard Combs say that he was actually going to get her parents fired, Mary said. So all of these things are threats that speak not only to the underlying RICO charge, which, by the way, looking back to the indictment, part of the prosecution's narrative is that he coerces women into romantic relationships under the guise of dating, but it's really for the purposes engagement of sex trafficking. So we got a little bit more. Nash goes on to say he would help Ventura hide from Combs often in hotels. Combs would then blow everyone's phone up, describing how Combs' chief of staff, Christina Quorum, would also call them had saying Combs had calmed down and they should come back to the house. Nash testified that he talked to Christina Quorum about the violence against Ventura. Quorum said she'd speak to Combs about it. Nash said, but the violence continued. Um, he goes on to say he testified that Ventura would go to a hotel with Diddy about weekly. He said he often saw her packing a black duffel bag with Smex toys for those stays. Nash testified that Ventura told she didn't want to go, but she did because he wanted her to. Nash recounted the night that celebrated Ventura's 29th birthday. Nash testified that Combs and Ventura argued at dinner, and Combs told her he did everything for her, but she couldn't do this one thing. Nash said Ventura told him that Combs was mad because I don't want to go to the hotel and freak off with him. After going to a karaoke bar and then returning to Ventura's house, Combs confronted Ventura and later told the group she would be leaving with him. Ventura packed a bag with personal items and money, telling Nash she didn't want to go, but she felt she had no choice. Nash testified that both Ventura and Combs appeared to be under the influence, with Ventura seeming more affected. Nash said he stopped working for Diddy in 2018, but they've kept in touch occasionally, talking on the phone over text. He said he'd act loving towards Combs when they spoke, despite everything he witnessed and personally he endured. He noted that he has not pursued legal action or made a money demand against Combs. Nash said he is still close to Ventura and they speak pretty often. When asked how he feel about Combs now, he said, I don't hate him. I mean, I don't. It's just not in me. Nash testified that he never reported any of the violence he witnessed out of fear that Combs would retaliate. All right, guys, so that's part one, and we have the cross examination on the next video.